Hello everybody and welcome back, and in this tutorial I just want to show you how you can make your Kali Linux machine a full screen. Now I already recorded this video, but for some reason the video didn't have audio on it. So you might be asking, why are you not just redoing the video and showing us everything from the beginning? Well, basically something really interesting happened, and by interesting I mean there was an error that occurred and I was still able to get the full screen mode in Kali Linux, but I just want to show you how you can get it, and if you encounter the same error, what you need to do in order to actually get your Kali Linux into the full screen mode. Now that's why I will be running just the actual video of the screen recording that I saved while I was trying to make my Kali Linux full screen. I will narrate over it, don't worry. Let me just find which one was it. I believe it was the 23 minutes or something like that, so it was a rather long video. So here it is, and let me just put this into the full screen mode. So as you can see right now, I already, or not already, I still have the regular Kali Linux small box machine. It's still not full screen, and let me just show you what I did in order to get it to the full screen. So I opened up my terminal, as you can see right here. So just click on the icon on the left right here in order to do that, which you should know by now. Open your terminal, and here I'm typing the command prompt in order to open my command prompt on Windows, so I can show you what the terminal actually is in Linux. So basically both of these are actually the same. The command prompt, which you might have actually encountered sometime on your Windows machine, is basically just a program that allows you to execute system commands, while basically the terminal in Linux is the actual same thing. Just this is in Windows and this is in Linux system. So let us continue. Let's see what else I showed right here, which I can't really remember. I will just go over every step I did in order to get the Kali Linux machine to be full screen. So let me just see. I opened up my Firefox, and yeah, the reason why I opened Firefox is because we have to find the repository on the Kali Linux website, which allows us to specify the link in our sources.list file. Now, for those of you who are new, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but don't worry, this process, I will show the entire process of actually doing it. So what I did is basically I just opened the Firefox, then I closed these these two windows that pop up by default, and I just want to actually go to the official Kali Linux website. So as you can see, I'm typing right here Kali repositories. So I just type repository and forgot even to finish the sentence, but it doesn't even matter. What you need to type in Google search bar is Kali repositories on your Kali Linux machine. Once you do that, you will go basically to the first link, which is Kali docs -Kali Linux, which is on the official site of Kali Linux. As you can see, this is the link. And all you want to actually find is the resources that we want to, or puzzle me, the repositories that we want to actually specify in our apt sources.list file. And those repositories, as you can see, I'm trying to find them. Here they are. You need to actually get the Kali rolling repository, as I am specifying right here. So you just go down, scroll down, and copy this part right here. Copy the entire link. As we can see, currently I am copying it, so we can specify it in our sources.list file. Then let me just go right here. So I opened after that my terminal, and right now what I will do is I will navigate to the sources.list file. Currently I am in the root directory, and I will navigate with the command called cd. As we can see, this ls command, once you type it in your terminal on Kali Linux, it will just list the directories in the current directory. So these are all the folders in my root directory. And with this cd etc apt, I'm changing my directory to the etc apt directory. And right now, if I specify ls once again, you can see in that directory, here is our sources.list file that we need. Now let me just go a little bit back. So what I did right here is I used the command nano sources.list, and what nano command does basically is it opens something similar to the notepad, so you can edit the file in there. It is a program that comes pre-installed in Kali Linux, and you can use it to nano any program, any file, any text file in order to see its contents and in order to change its contents. So we want to nano the sources.list file, which we found in the /etc/apt directory, which we navigated with this command cd etc apt. Once we open that file, you will see that this is specified in that file. Now, we already have the thing that we copied. As we can see, if I paste the thing that I copied from the Kali Linux official website, you can see that these two links are the same. Now, if in your case they are not the same, what you want to do is you want to actually delete one, or not delete one, you want to paste the one that we copied in case that the one that I opened right here is not present. But since you can see in my case I already have two the same links, so I will not need this one. So as you can see right now, I will delete it from here. All these other links that are under the hashtag are the links that won't be used, and don't remove the hashtags from them since we don't really need them currently. So all you have to do right now in order to save this, so as you can see I'm just showing you what hashtag does, you need to leave it like this, so with one link. You want to Control O to save. Let me just see when do I do that. So it should be Control O to save, then Enter, then Control X to exit the program. So let's go a little bit forward. As we can see, I press Control O, it asks me file name to write, sources.list, you press there Enter, and then you Control X to exit. So let me just go forward, and as we can see, right after you do that, this is the command that you want to run, apt-get, and then update. So once you run that, it will take a few seconds to finish, so let me just move that. As we can see, it finished. I use the clear command to clear my screen, which is an optional, you don't really need to use it. And the next thing I do is apt install linux -headers. Now, let me just see when I write the full command right here. So I will explain everything this command does, even though it doesn't really matter, you just need to run it in order to install the headers. And basically what this command does is it installs the Linux headers currently needed for our Kali Linux version. This command uname-r, if typed in terminal, will basically just print out the version of headers needed, or the version of headers that are currently on your Kali Linux machine. But with this command I specify to install the headers that are already made for my Kali Linux version with this command right here. So we let this run. It shouldn't take too long. Oh yes, here is the error that I encountered, which is basically a lock appeared. Anytime you actually get this error during the installation of any program or apt update and upgrade, it will say could not get lock and then the path to the lock. Now there are 3 locks, and in case you get this error, all you want to do is actually delete all these 3 locks. Now if you don't get this error, don't worry, you might not even get this error, but in my case I did get, so I had to delete all of those 3 locks. The first one is specified with this path right here, so you just use the rm command, which stands for remove, and then you just copy this path right here and paste it after the rm. This will delete the lock at that path, and then you can proceed to download. But as you can see, there will be a second lock that will appear on different path, and you will need to actually delete that one as well. So as we can see, I remove the lock right now, and I try once again, and right here you see that I actually have another lock on different path, so you just copy this path as well, and you perform the same rm command in order to remove that lock. As we can see here, I am explaining that, so let us remove it. As we can see right now, I removed it, and I tried to run the apt install Linux headers once again, and this is where I got another error for the third lock and last lock, which you need to delete before you actually are able to download this. Now the lock is at this file, so you just copy this file, you specify rm once again, and delete the lock at that path. And right now, if you run the apt install Linux headers once again, you will be good to go, and you will be able to actually download them in case you don't have them. Now in my case, let me just go this way forward, in my case it was already the newest version, so I didn't have to download. Now let me see what I did next. So I will just forward this. Okay, so right here, after that, what I did is basically I went to my, let me just show you because I already passed it. So after you install the Linux headers, where you want to go is you want to go right here to the devices. So let me just let this run, so devices. Then you want to insert guest edition CD image. So click on that. As we can see, I clicked right here. And it will prompt with this window saying, contains software intended to be automatically started, would you like to run it? What you want to do is press cancel right here, since we do not want to automatically run it, because it won't really work. So what you want to do is run a few commands and basically install the VirtualBox Guest Edition themselves, and you will be good to go and be able to actually get the full screen Kali Linux. As we can see right now, I'm installing some VirtualBox Guest utilities, as I believe that I did it. So let me just see right here. apt-get install VirtualBox and then minus guest minus utils. So you just press here Y. If it asks you do you want to continue, you press here Y for yes and N for no, and it will download those utilities for you. So let's go forward Not really sure how long this took. It took quite some time, so a few minutes. It didn't prompt any questions during the installation. And right after you do that, what I did, oops, let me go one step back. So right after I did that, I changed my directory to this directory. So I changed my directory to media, and from there, I want to change my directory to CD-ROM0. Since there is where my VirtualBox guest editions are, which I imported previously with devices and then insert VirtualBox guest editions. So I go there, I will probably type CD. Okay, so here it is. And then we can see a bunch of programs right here. The program that we're interested in is the VBox Linux Editions.run. All of the other programs, as you can see, these .exe programs are for Windows. So you want to copy the VBox Linux Editions.run, and what you want to do is basically just run that file. So as we can see, in order to run that file, you need to type sh and then / and then the name of the file itself. Then you can press enter, and this will start actually downloading or installing the VirtualBox guest editions for you. It says, do you wish to continue? I just pressed here yes, and it started installing it. So let me just forward this, so we don't wait for the installation. Okay, so it is still installing, and here is the error that I actually got right after it. As it says, VBox client failed to register, resizing support. Now, this is the error that you might get or you might not get. Basically, as I was saying in this video, but the audio didn't really record it, I was saying that the installing of the VirtualBox guest editions is most likely different for every Kali Linux version, and it really often gives some errors back. But the best thing you can do is actually just reboot after the error, and it might actually even work after that. It probably will work, or unless you actually specified something wrongly in the commands and you actually get a real error. This is not something that we should be worried about, so if you get the same thing right here, don't be worried. As you can see right now, all I did was just reboot the machine with the reboot command. So let me just show you. So I typed reboot, and now my PC, or pardon me, my Kali Linux machine will actually restart. As soon as it boots, you can see that it actually booted up in the full screen mode. And I get prompted the login screen in the full screen mode. So as long as you do all of the commands that I did in this video in the same order, even if you get that error, don't worry, just restart your Kali Linux machine and you will have the full screen mode enabled. As we can see, once I log in, my desktop and everything else is in the full screen mode. So that would be about it for the actual going full screen in Kali Linux video. I just wanted to show you this. Basically, as I said, I didn't really redo the entire process itself, since I just wanted to show you in case you get the error as well, so you know what you need to do. So that would be about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye. Hello everybody, and welcome back. And in the previous videos, I showed you how you can actually install VirtualBox, Kali Linux, and your VirtualBox guest editions in order to have our Kali Linux machine in full screen mode. So right now, we can actually start to introduce ourselves with the Python environment in Kali Linux. So this is the similar desktop to before, to in the previous video, and right now just open up your terminal. Basically, you can enlarge it if you want to. It doesn't even matter. I will zoom in just in case so you can actually see it a little bit better, which I will do with the view and then zoom in right here. It just makes you actually see this better and in larger letters. What I will do right now is I will actually make my terminal background not transparent, so you can basically see the code better once we actually start coding. So I will do that with the edit part, then preferences. Then let me just find it. Okay, so it is under colors section right here, transparent background. You can change it right here. I will just leave it to be completely black. Now you can leave it anything you want. You can make it fully transparent. You can make it different colors and so on and so on. But this is not really the part of our course. So all we have to do right now is actually open up the Python in order to show you the Python interpreter and how you can actually use Python in order to create programs in Kali Linux environment. So first of all, before we do any of that, let's ask ourselves, why are we even doing this? Why are we coding our own tools? Why are we using Python and not some other programming languages? Well, basically, the idea behind actually teaching people how they can write their own tools is to differentiate you from basically anyone that's using the tools. Now, it is in the hacker world referring to as a script kiddie. is someone that always uses different people's tools and doesn't really know how they work in the background. Now, programming knowledge and coding those tools actually gives you an in-depth view and actually a better understanding of how those tools work and how does the process of attacking really work. And also, one more thing, those tools that you use from other people, that you either download from GitHub or that you actually get from the Kali Linux itself, since Kali Linux comes pre-installed with a bunch of different hacking tools, which will not be the part of this course. Some of those tools will break sometime. So what you want to do in case some of those tools break and you need them, you can learn to code them yourself and use them whenever you actually want. And for example, some of the tools are not really specified for a certain type of attack, so you can actually, with your programming knowledge and hacking knowledge, combine those two and actually create a tool that will be specifically for a certain attack, which you can't really do if you can't really code or you don't know how to code any hacking tools. You only know how to use tools from different people. Now, as I said before, this will also give you a better understanding of what is happening behind the scenes, since you will be the one that is actually coding the attack itself. Now, the reason why we are using Python is basically from two reasons. First of all, the Python is you can say the hacker's programming language, since it is a scripting language and it allows us to create programs really fast. For example, C is a low-level language, and anything we actually code in Python in this course will take a lot longer or significantly longer to code in C. Python is easier, and also, basically, I chose this language because I will not be teaching you the programming itself. If you are in the position to, please, you can just take any Python programming course, beginner course, it doesn't even matter. You can just look at some of the videos at YouTube, so you can see the syntax for the Python. You will understand all of this a little bit better and easier, but don't worry if you don't want to or don't have time to do that. I will explain everything as well, just not in that detail, since we will be mostly focusing on the hacking part of the code itself. So, in order for us to actually open Python in Kali Linux, you just open up your terminal as we did right here, and all you have to do is just type Python. Now what this will do is it will open up the Python interpreter right here, where we can actually execute these commands, or basically execute the program itself. Now Python interpreter is not really something that we will use in order to make our programs, but you can also always use it in order to test a certain part of the program, since it gives you the error right away. For example, there is a import function called import_os, which imports a library, and as you can see, if something like this happens right here, which you get 3 arrow and then 3 arrow once again, it means it executed properly. But if I try to import something that doesn't exist, which is OSS, it will give me a name saying no module named OSS. So this is Python interpreter. We can use it just to simply check our syntax if it is correct or not before actually putting it in the program itself. But another thing you might actually notice is that this is the Python 2.7.15 plus. So basically this is the Python 2. The Python 3 you can open, let me just show you how, with the Python and then 3. As we can see, Python 2 we open with just simply typing Python, and Python 3 interpreter we can all open with typing Python 3, which will lead to the same command prompt with these 3 arrows to the right, but this will be the Python version 3.6.8. So that is something you want to differentiate. That is how you can open Python. That is how you can use Python interpreter. Now let's see how we can actually write a simple hello world program and save it and actually execute it from our terminal. We do not want to use the Python interpreter. We actually want to create a program ourselves. So here, if you just type your ls, which stands for listing directories in the current directory in which we are, basically in order to check in which directory you are, you just type your pwd. It will print working directory as it says right here. P stands for print, W for working, and D for the directory. We are currently in the root directory, which is good. We want to be there. As you remember from the previous videos, you can actually navigate through the directories with the cd command. So for example, if you wanted to go to the documents, you could just type cd documents, press enter, and now if you just type pwd once again, we are in the /root/documents directory. But we want to go one directory back, which we can do with cd and then 2 dots. It leads you one directory back, which will lead us right back to our root directory. Right now, what we want to do is actually create the directory where we will actually save our Python programs that we will code. So let us make a directory. Now, in order to make a directory in a simple Kali Linux environment, you just type in your terminal mkdir, and then the name of the directory you want to create, which can be anything. In my case, it will be Python programs. because we are going to make Python programs and save them in that directory. You just press here enter, and if you just type here ls once again, we can see right now we have the Python programs directory as well as other directories that were there before. In order to go to our Python programs directory, we just type here cd Python programs, and we are now in our Python programs directory. And if you just type here ls here, you will see there is nothing in this directory, since it is a new one and we didn't have any file created at the moment. What we want to do is we actually want to create our first program, which will be a simple hello world program from Python. And then in the next videos and in the next section, we will continue, or basically we will start with our first hacking programs, which will be the port scanners, or basically scanning the target. So in order to actually create the program, you just type here nano, and then just specify the name of the program you want to create. In my case, I just want to call it test, and it needs to have the extension .py, since py stands for Python programs, and it must really have that extension in order for Kali Linux to be able to run it from the terminal. So nano that. And something you need to know while actually creating any program in Linux is that you need to specify the path to the Python libraries, which is the which you can do with hash and then exclamation mark and then /user /bin and then /python. This is something that you will specify at the beginning of every program that you actually code in Kali Linux, so make sure to remember this. Don't worry, I will also tell you this like every time that we actually code something, that you need to specify this path right here. And in order for us to actually print hello world, we can actually just do print, open brackets, close brackets, and between the double quotes, which is specified in the brackets, we can just type hello world. This is the entire program. Print function basically prints anything, or basically prints what is inside the brackets to our terminal, and we specify that it should print hello world. You specify a string to be printed out by putting it between the double quotes or single quotes. So let me just show you. Both single quotes and double quotes will work. You know it is a string when it actually turns green right here, so it changes color. Now, this is not a must. If you, for example, change color from your terminal, it might be some different color, but it doesn't matter. You will notice when it is a string and when it is not. I will just use double quotes in this case. And in order to save this file, or to save this program, you just type here Ctrl-O, then enter, as it says file name to write, you want to type here enter, so it writes under that name, and Ctrl-X to exit. In order for you to, for example, clear the screen, you can just type here clear, which will just clear the terminal from previous commands. And let's see if we type here ls once again, we now have our test.py. Now, for those of you who are really new to this, let me just explain what nano did. So nano, as we used it once we actually wrote our program, is basically opening our program, and actually it opens something similar to the, for example, Notepad in the Windows, where you can actually write anything, whether it is text or part of code, and then save it to a file. As we did right here, we saved this part of code to the file test.py. So let's close this. And right now, if we just try to run this, which we can do with either typing Python and then test.py, if we want to run it with Python 2, or typing Python 3 test.py. Now, before we can actually run this, we need to make this an executable, since if I just press here enter, whoops, it actually doesn't need to be made an executable since I specified the Python 3. But if I wanted to run it as an every other program with / and then the name of the file, which is test.py, it will say permission denied, since that program isn't really an executable. So in order for us to actually make it an executable, we can just do chmod, which stands for change mod, and then +x. This +x stands for actually making a file an executable, which you will need to do for every file you actually code. And then you specify the name of the file itself, which in our case it is test.py. So this command right here will make our file executable. And if I just type here enter and press ls once again, you can see right now we have the executable test.py. And this command / and then test.py should now work. As we can see right here, we are able to run the program, which just prints up hello world. So I just wanted to show you this, how you can actually create a simple program which just prints hello world. Some of the commands that we will use, which is such as chmod +x, such as nano, which we will use to open the file in, for example, something similar to a notepad, ls to list files, then / and then the name of the file to run the file itself. And I also showed you the Python 2 and Python 3 interpreters. So that would be about it for this video. This is just a simple video where I explained why do we need to use Python and what we will be doing. So in the next section, we will actually start coding our scanning tools that we will use for scanning the target. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you in the next lecture. Bye! Hello everybody, and welcome to the scanning section, where we will code the tools that we will use to scan our target. Now before we actually start coding, let's see what scanning really means. So in Kali Linux there comes a tool which is actually called Nmap. It allows us to scan the targets for the open ports, which could potentially run vulnerable softwares on them, which we can actually possibly exploit afterwards. So this is the first part of actually collecting some information about the target. We want to scan for its open ports, and we also want to see what kind of version of software are they running on those open ports. After that, once we find that out, we actually want to, for example, see if that version of software is vulnerable to some attack or not. Now, in order to do that simply in Python, in Kali Linux, you just type here nmap and then the IP address or the host name of the target. So if you just type here nmap and then let's say we use the IP address of my laptop, which is 192.168.1.15, which I checked out right now, and if I just try to scan it, which I can do it with this command, it will just scan my laptop for the open ports, and as we can see it finished relatively fast, and it found an open port, which is port 80, which services the HTTP. So let's try to actually code something similar to this, which will allow us to actually scan a target that we specify, and which will actually check if that target has an open or closed port. So let's see how we can actually do that. So let's just clear the screen with the clear command, and let's in our Python programs, first of all, let's delete the test.py from the previous video. We do not need it anymore. You can delete it with the rm command, which you should be already familiar with. And right now, let's create an actual directory where we will only save the files for our scanning. So let's call the directory scanning. Make sure to make it in the Python programs directory. So I will mkdir scanning, which is also a command you should be familiar with. And if I just type here ls, we have our scanning directory. So let me change my directory to scanning. And let's actually write the program and call it, for example, portscan1.py. So since we will code multiple ones, we will try to actually make them better and better as we go. So let us actually just type here portscan1.py. And let's try to write a simple port scanner, which will just scan a simple port. So how can we do that? Well, first of all, as I said in the previous videos, what you need to do in every Python program you run in Kali Linux, it must start with a line, which is this. So hash, !, /user/bin, and then /python. Now, why is that? If you skipped through those introductory videos, basically this just specifies the path to the Python libraries that we will use. So this is something that you must have in your program. And after that, what we want to do is we actually want to import a library which will allow us to perform the connect function on target ports. Now, performing that connect function will actually allow us to see if that port is closed or opened. If we manage to connect to that port, that means the port is open. If we get connection refused, for example, that means that the port is closed. So we will use the library called socket. So we will just specify here socket. You specify the library to import with the import function right here. So import socket will give us access to all of the functions that are in this library called socket. And right now, what we want to do is actually create a socket object and then basically perform the function which will actually connect to the port itself. So in order to create the socket object, it can be a little bit tricky syntax, so make sure to follow with me. You can call it anything you want. I will call it sock in my case. So sock equals, this sock basically represents a variable, so we can just put anything to that variable with this equal sign. And we want to make it a socket object, so how do we do that? We just type here socket.socket, open brackets, so open and close them, and inside the brackets you want to type socket.af_inet, comma, socket.sock_stream. So this is how we actually define the socket object itself, and we actually put it as a value to this variable right here, which we call sock. Now, this socket.af_inet basically stands for the IPv4 address, so we will be performing the connection to the IPv4 host, which is the IP4 and not IPv6 address, and this socket.sock_stream represents that we are going to use the TCP packets in order to perform the connection. Now, TCP and UDP, we want to perform the TCP three-way handshake and not UDP packet. Well, basically, for those of you knowing, UDP is actually connectionless. but it really doesn't matter at this point. Right now, it matters that you know that this stands for the TCP packets. So we will be trying to perform the three-way handshake with each port of the host, but for now on, let's just actually try to perform it with only one port, and then we will see how we can actually scan multiple ports and not just one. So right now, what we want to do is actually just type here the value host, which we can set to be, for example, my laptop, which is 192.168.1.15. Now, make sure that you actually, don't worry, I will show you how you can install the virtual machine where you can actually perform all of these scans and all of these attacks that we will do. But from now on, you can just select any IP address you want, such as the IP address of your Kali Linux machine itself, so you can actually scan yourself, or the IP address of your actual main PC or Windows machine, in case you're running Windows. Now, how can you check the IP address on Windows machine? You just go to the tab right here, type here cmd, and then in your command prompt, once it opens up, you can just type your ipconfig, and the result of the ipconfig will actually give you your IP4 address, which is the local address, which in my case is this one right here. So make sure to navigate to the IPv4 address and select the address right here, which is in my case 192.168.1.4, which is the IP address of my Windows 10 machine. So we can scan my Windows 10 machine. Let's just type it right here, 192.168.1.4. We close the quotes since we specified the host. We also want to actually specify the port, so let's specify the port to be, for example, port 443. And we will try to perform the connect function to this port on this host. Now this is the most simple port scanner. Don't worry, we will scan and we will make the more advanced port scanners later on. But from now on, I'm just showing you the basic principle behind actually scanning and connecting to a certain port. So let's try to actually connect. So in order to do that, we actually need to make a function. So in order to specify the function, you just type here def and then port scanner. And in the port scanner, what we want to do is in the brackets, type here port. Now, let me just explain this. In order to declare a function in Python, you need to use this def before it. Then the port scanner is the name of the function that we want to create, and the port is the argument that we will pass to the function. Now, after that, all you need to do is specify two dots, which basically means that the code below and the code that we will basically tab in will be the part of the function itself. So how do we do that? Just press here enter, tab this, and we can just type here something like this: if sock.connect underscore ex, and then in the ex you specify two open or double open brackets and double close brackets, and inside them you specify host and then comma port. Let me just write this and then I will explain what this means. So first of all, I will write the code of the function and then I will tell you what all of this means. Don't worry, I will explain it all. So print port and then %d is closed and then %port. Oops. And then we just type here else. Oops. Print port %d is opened. And then port. And then at the end, we want to call the function itself. Okay, so this is basically our most simple port scanner. Let me just explain what I did right here. So let's start from the beginning actually. So we created the socket object. This is the stands for IPv4 and this stands for TCP packets. We declared the host variable to contain the IP address of our Windows 10 machine, and we selected the port to be, for example, 443. You can select here any port in order to try it. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be 443, or you can go with the 443 like I did. Then we declare the function which will perform this task right here each time it is called. Now the function is named port scanner, and it will take one argument which will be called port. So after that, we need to close it with two dots, and then we need to tab every code that we want to be a part of the function. So for example, if I were to type here any code, this will not be a part of the function anymore, since it is at the same line as the function itself. But if I were to do this, Now it would be the code of the function since it belongs and it is tabbed properly. Let me just delete this as this is not really a code. And right now, what we do in the function itself, we perform the simple if-else statement. Now, you can look at the if-else statement as something like, you can basically translate it to English. So if this doesn't work, or if this works, then do this, else do this. So if socket.connect retrieves an error, any type of error, which we actually check with this function right here. So sock.connect underscore ex. We try to connect to the host on this port, so on this host, and on this port, which we specified in the double brackets, separated by comma. If it retrieves an error, that means that the port is closed, since we got the error back. So we will print to the terminal, port is closed. Now this %d basically stands for anything that you specify after the string itself, it will be replaced right here. So since our port is actually number 443, if this port is closed, this will print port 443 is closed. Else, so in any other case, so if we don't get an error, that means we successfully connected to the target, and that means that port is actually opened. So in that case, we will print port and then the port number is opened. So let us save this and see if this will work. Now before we save it, this part right here is basically how you can call a function. So if I didn't have this part right here, this function will never be called and this program will not execute this at all. So we need to call the function and we specify the variable inside the function, which is our port variable, which will be used throughout this program. So let us save this, Ctrl-O to save, Enter, Ctrl-X to exit. And as you remember, in order to run this, we need to make it an executable first with the chmod plus x. Then we type the name of the file itself, so chmod plus x portscan1.py, and let's actually try to run it. You let it run, and we can see port 443 is closed. So right now, let us actually try to scan our Windows 10 machine with nmap to see if there is any port that is actually opened, so we can actually use that port in order to check if our program will print that port and then that number is opened. So let's type right here. This should finish relatively fast. And we can see these are the open ports on my Windows 10 machine. So port 445 is open, port 139 is open, and port 135 is open. So let's actually change our program. So nano portscan1.py. We open the code itself and we change this to 445, since 445 is one of the ports that was open. We Ctrl-O enter, we then exit this and we run the program once again with the dot and then slash portscan1.py. And we can see right now it prints port 445 is opened. So now we know that our program works correctly. It can actually scan port if the port is open or closed. But this is the most simple version of our port scanner, so we will actually in the next few videos try to make it better, implement some different functions, make it scan more ports than just one, and so on and so on. So hope you enjoyed this introductory video to the port scans. Now for those of you who are actually a little bit more advanced and know Python and know all of that, it might be a little bit too much explaining for your taste, but please stick around. Later on we will be coding some of the more advanced stuff, don't worry. And later on, the more we go with these programs, the less I will explain what I'm doing in them. So that will be about it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one where we will actually try to change some of the stuff in our port scan. So hope I see you there, and take care.